Wait, this is supposed to be progressive soup. This is progressive Greek yogurt tonight. What?
Is that fat-free Greek yogurt or full-fat Greek yogurt?
Oh no, they don't make fat-free Greek yogurt. And the Greek yogurt is Greek yogurt. It's thick. It's got all kinds of fat in it, but it's good fat.
Well, you'd be surprised.
And tonight, believe it or not, we're actually going to talk about food, as if you couldn't guess.
It's progressive soup.
So the question is, when should we eat? And we hear about all the time about when not to eat. Don't eat late at night.
Yeah.
Don't eat here. Don't eat there. Don't eat this. Don't eat that.
Right.
When
exactly.
should we eat?
See, the industry. I mean, if you listen to a lot of nutritionists that tell you, make sure you have breakfast, make sure you have lunch, make sure you have dinner. I always say, make sure you eat when you're hungry.
Oh.
The best time to eat is when you're hungry. If you're not hungry, don't eat.
Yeah.
Huh.
Who made up all these rules that, gotta have breakfast? Says who?
Well, how do you know when you're hungry?
Because I said so, just
Right.
kidding.
How do you know when you're hungry? I mean,
It's really simple. When you're truly hungry, you want to eat anything, okay?
Right.
So
Okay.
basically the question I always tell my clients to ask themselves, would you be able to indulge in a piece of stale bread? Indulge, not just eat it.
Right.
Okay, if the answer is no, not really, then you're not hungry.
Right.
Or another way you can tell is, have you ever had dinner and after you're done eating dinner an hour later, you go back in the kitchen looking through the cabinets, looking for something to eat?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you for sure, number one, you're not hungry, because if you were hungry, you could have went back and keep eating what you were just eating.
Right.
But you don't want that, do you?
No.
You want something else. We tell them that's a craving, that's not true hunger. So to me, the biggest rule that unfortunately nobody teaches in the nutrition world anymore is learn to eat out of hunger.
Right.
And to me, and your body would tell you when to eat.
Right. I mean,
Simple.
if you have to think about whether you're hungry or not, then you're probably not.
Exactly.
Right.
Default is always no.
Might be bored.
Exactly.
Boredom is a great reason to
Yeah.
eat. I mean, you're bored. Well,
Yeah.
what's the answer? Grab something to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're bored, you're angry, you're sad, you're happy, tired.
Stressed.
All
Anxiety.
these emotions,
Yes.
emotions,
Yeah.
and the simple solution, the simple answer to all of them is grab something to eat.
Yep.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, though, that's not how the body's designed. And that's where we get in trouble, is that we use food as a drug, but food is not a drug, and we cannot stuff our emotions down with food. Because then, because every time you eat and you were not hungry, basically that's access. Because since the body did not ask for it, that's beyond what the body needs.
Yeah.
Which means even if you had an apple, let's say, okay, and you weren't hungry, the apple becomes bad. Because the apple is beyond what your body needs. Now, you could argue that an apple is better than a cookie. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
But the best choice, if you were not hungry, would have been not to eat. You gotta find something else to do. But unfortunately, in today's society, food has become a drug to
And
deal
we
with
always
everyday
have
life.
food available to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you didn't have food constantly. You didn't have a refrigerator.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you didn't have a refrigerator with 100 different varieties of something in it to choose from. So you kind of were a little limited.
Exactly, and because I was brought up in Greece, okay, and matter of fact, that's one reason why I took a different turn from other nutritionists. I went to school, I learned nutrition like everybody else, but the reason I took a different turn because what I was learning in school here contradicted my upbringing. And I was raised on an island. Where I was raised, I actually, as a kid, I thought cancer was a rare disease. Okay, thin was the norm. Out of 350 kids in my school, 3 were overweight, literally 3. Everybody else was normal weight.
Yeah.
Right.
And thin was the norm. People in their 90s lived independent lives. Now, how often did adults eat? On average, twice. And guess what we did after eating? We took a nap. Terrible. Which is a good thing.
It seems like I've heard a place or 2 or 20 that napping after eating is not necessarily a good thing, or might even be a bad thing.
No, it's the best thing.
It's true, because biologically it's true. You have the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system.
Yep.
sympathetic nervous system, I learned this in massage school, is fight or flight, how
Yeah.
your body reacts in an emergency, right? And it's when you're under stress. But then the parasympathetic, so sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. So in order to digest your food, you have to rest. It's just biological.
Yeah,
to
because
digest your food
exactly.
properly, you have to rest.
Because think about it.
Yeah.
How do you feel after eating a big meal?
Like sleeping.
Right?
Exactly. It's the natural thing. If you look at every healthy region around the world, no exceptions,
Right.
when do they eat their largest meal? Whether it's dinner or lunch, it's always at a time they can rest afterwards. I mean, I know in Italy it's like that, in Greece it's
Right.
like this. Look at Mexico.
Right.
Now, this is an interesting part. In Greece, we had a big lunch. We had a 3-hour lunch break though.
Yeah.
But in the, exactly, in Italy
Yeah.
too, right? In the villages where my mother was raised, they had a big dinner, not a big lunch. Why? Because they worked in the fields. So since they didn't have a break at lunch, they had to work in the field.
Opportunity.
They knew naturally,
Right.
instinctively, not to have a big meal. They had a very light meal.
Right.
Even ourselves as kids. In September, we used to go to the village to collect olives for 2 weeks. During that period, lunch became a light meal, dinner became a main meal. What does
Right.
every animal on earth that eats of any significance, what does it do after eating?
Well, the
Go
lion
sleep.
does.
Relax.
Every lion I've seen in any
Yeah.
lion-based movie, it sleeps.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a long period of time, generally.
Yep. True.
So why would humans be any different that we require activity
That's right.
after eating? And then if you look at even a little bit closer, look at digestion.
Right.
How does the body digest food? You eat,
Yeah.
your blood vessels around your body constrict, forces blood to your digestive organs
Yeah.
to aid digestion. Now, and that is why, by the way, you're sleepy, because you wanna relax so digestion can take place properly. Now, if though you ate this big meal and then you're forced to go to work, well, maybe not forced, but you have to go to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, or whether his work is mental work or physical work, doesn't really matter. What happens? The constriction
Right.
does not take place, or if it does, it's compromised. So digestion gets compromised.
Yeah.
I've read studies actually they've done on dogs where that we have one dog both ate the same thing, a steak.
Right.
One dog was allowed to do whatever he wanted. He took a nap. The second dog went out hunting. When they came back and they looked at the food content from each dog's stomach, the dog that went out hunting, the food was completely undigested. The dog that took a nap, the food was digested.
Wow.
So to me, if you look at digestion, this is not, by the way, there's no controversy about digestion at all. There's nothing controversial about it. That's how digestion works. So,
It's true.
and if you look at health, all the healthy regions around the world, breakfast, nobody eats it. And if they
Right.
do, it's a coffee, maybe with a biscuit.
Right.
So if they eat something, it's very small or not at all.
No, in Italy, yeah.
And you mentioned about how how it didn't matter whether your activity was of a physical or a mental nature.
Exactly, doesn't really matter because even if you have to think, it requires blood. So your brain still needs blood to function. So even if you're doing thinking work, it still needs blood.
Right.
And having eaten, you compromise, something has to give.
Right.
Something has to give. So if you really have to work, unfortunately, you have to do your work.
Yeah.
So what happens? What gives? Digestion. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest reasons why we're suffering with so much indigestion has little to do with the food that we're eating and more to do with the timing of the meal. I don't know if you ever had the incident where you ate something and then something stressful happened right after you're eating. How did your stomach feel? I don't know if you've ever I've experienced that where I got some really bad news where I just finished my dinner and all of a sudden I got indigestion
Right.
because stress kills digestion. So if you go to work, and I'm sure most people have stress for work, how do you feel? So, and that's why to me, unfortunately, there's more, and again, I hate to get controversial here, but there's more about special interests promoting this breakfast idea than anything else. Okay, because if you look at the
It couldn't be the
facts-
breakfast people. That couldn't be cereal salesmen that are
No.
that are promoting breakfast. Could it be?
Yep, because think about
Of course, you could eat cereal late at night. And you
Exactly.
could have cereal for lunch. You could have
Yeah, at a diner.
You could have breakfast for dinner.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
it's breakfast food.
Yep. And by the way, I like cereal, but if I eat cereal, it's usually lunch or dinner.
Right. Right.
Because I don't eat breakfast and I hardly ever eat lunch anyway. But think about this. Do you remember Dr. David Allison
Yep.
from the University of Alabama? Him and his colleagues looked at 92 studies from 1994 till the year 2011, all breakfast studies supporting the idea of breakfast. And what we found was there was no strong evidence supporting that breakfast is beneficial to our weight or our health. When you looked at all the studies actually were observational studies. They did not have any strong evidence. It was basically means that they looked at a whole bunch of people that eat breakfast. They looked at their weight. The people that eat breakfast tend to have lower weight and they're healthier than the people that don't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, look at this. Breakfast is good for you.
Right.
But they forgot the fact that we don't know what else these people do outside the morning meal. Maybe the people that eat breakfast, they tend to be more health conscious, so maybe they ate really well the rest of the day. Maybe they exercised more.
Right.
But the studies never looked at, there was no control group.
Ah,
And then there was no control
and
group.
Where's the study without a control group? Emily, you mentioned something about two digestive. I'm still digesting what you said, so repeat it, please.
Well, just how when we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
So when we're stressed, it's fight or flight, which
Yeah.
how most of us in our society live in stress.
Yeah.
And then cortisol is released, and they say that could possibly lower our immune systems, cause cancer, diseases, right? And that's when our muscles, maybe you can go on more about fight or flight. Our bodies can't digest
Food. Basically, digestion shuts down because you have more important stuff to do at that point.
Like running away from a tiger chasing you, or
eating Greek yogurt.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas when digestion, for digestion to take place, there's a parasympathetic nervous system.
So sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Right. Parasympathetic is rest. They coined by the phrase rest and digest, which means you're relaxed, you're calm. They say that getting massage, it brings out your parasympathetic nervous system. So
And
if you're
allows you to
relaxed,
digest better?
digest your food.
Basically relaxing.
Yeah.
You have to relax to digest.
And your immune system increases, and it's just better for your well-being.
In the United States, when do people rest?
Yeah.
At night.
Okay, I was going to say never, but
we're constantly on the go.
If you're gonna rest, I guess it's probably going to be while you're completely at rest.
But it's interesting because Stavros, part of your program, one of them is eating slowly and mindfully.
Yeah.
But how often do people eat slowly and mindfully? People are on the go. They eat in the car, fast food, bringing their kids to all their activities. I mean, when do people really eat slowly and mindfully? They're like eating while they're doing a million other things.
Exactly. We don't pay attention.
Eating on the run.
And that's, I think that's another whole conversation there, because when do you get pleasure out of food? Right? When the food's in your mouth.
Right.
The longer you can keep the food in your mouth, and the more attention you're paying while you're eating, the more pleasure you get out of the food.
Right.
Which means you don't need as much food to get the same amount of pleasure. But if you're eating and you're not paying attention, or you're swallowing before you really even chew your food, you're gonna get less pleasure, which means you need to eat more food in order to satisfy your, because hunger, there's a lot more to hunger.
Makes complete sense.
But again, the Buddhist monk actually practiced slow and mindful eating.
Yeah.
So that's another habit, because basically what I teach in my program is, I teach altogether 7 habits.
Right.
And the first 3 is eat only when hungry, eat slow and mindful, and stop eating when you satisfy your hunger. And actually, Emily, you've been to my program.
Right, and I've lost about 35
And
pounds.
you can tell us, what did you think of, because I know a lot of people say to me, well, I don't know if I can do that, eat only when I'm hungry.
Right.
So what was your experience with the...
Well, it was kind of like coming off of a drug. I must say it was difficult at the beginning because you think you're going...
habit. Yeah, you're in a certain structure of doing things in your daily routine.
I mean,
changing that is tough.
Yeah, I mean, I can compare it to that movie, Ray Charles. There's this scene when Jamie Foxx, who plays Ray Charles, is coming off of cocaine or some drug, and I just remember at some point...
It is a withdrawal. It is a withdrawal.
I remember one night just being like praying to God. I said, "Oh dear God, please help me get through this night," because you think you need sugar, and I think and then Stavros would say, "Just have lemon and water or something, or anything, and you just have to get through that." But if I can, it's like going through the dark night of the soul. You think you're
Dark
going.
night of the
it
soul.
was. I swear.
Wow, my God.
For me, it
See that? What a title for a book that would be.
It
Or in the
was.
case of a good friend of the show, Dave Barry,
It's
who does that,
true.
the article for the Miami Herald periodically now still. What a great name for a rock and roll band. Dark.
No, it's true.
Dark Night of the
It
Soul.
was really difficult
Rob,
for me.
that would be Rob could start a group named the Dark Night of the
No.
Soul.
I think
But listen,
I think a better analogy, because I'm willing to bet that most people never tried Coke and they never have to get them off of it. It would be comparing it to coming off coffee.
right?
You know, if it's
okay.
off coffee, right?
Or sugar.
Sugar, you get a headache.
Yeah.
It's a withdrawal.
Yeah.
Because it's food, it has become a
Yes.
drug.
Your
Yeah.
body's punishing you. It's sending you a little message
Yeah.
to your brain that says, "Oh, by the way, damn it,
Yeah.
will you feed me what I want
Right.
now?"
Yes.
Yeah, because and the thing is, as far as coming off,
Yeah.
you can have a lot of cravings like you did. But I
Right.
think the one thing that helps a lot with cravings is that people don't realize the cravings.
Right.
They get the power from you. And I
Yeah.
think we talked about that. And from you contemplating whether you're gonna give in or not. You see, when you're having a craving, really, what are you doing? You dwell on it. Dwelling, what does it really mean? Dwelling means the question you're asking yourself is, what excuse can I come up with so I can eat?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And when you ask the question, you lost the battle already.
Yeah.
Because we all become very creative with excuses to why it's okay to eat. And usually we say things like, tomorrow I'm gonna be extra good, tomorrow I'm gonna run an extra mile.
Right.
I'll be
Or
good.
Monday.
I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah.
I swear I will.
So once you ask the question, you lost the battle, because your brain is like a search engine. You ask the question, the brain finds an answer. The brain does not reject the question. It doesn't say, hey, Dave, you're trying to lose some weight over here. What's the matter with you? It doesn't say that. It just, you ask the question, comes up with an answer. So what is the answer? The answer is very simple. Change the question. So you're having a craving,
Right.
and let's say you're craving a chocolate, but you know you shouldn't be eating it
Right.
because you're not hungry. And by the way, I have nothing against chocolate. It's okay to eat chocolate once in a while. But anyway, but let's say you weren't hungry though. So the question you should be asking yourself is, I shouldn't be eating this chocolate because I'm not really hungry. What else can I do instead? And that's where the lemon water, there's
Right.
other things you can do.
Right.
Have you ever had the incident where you trying to remember somebody's name and you forgot it?
All the
And then a
time.
week later, it pops into your head, although it's worthless knowledge at that point.
Usually like 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
I'll wake up and it'll be, oh,
That's-
that's who that was.
Exactly, because your subconscious mind takes in the
Right.
question and works on it. It doesn't mean just because the first time you ask the question, what else can I do instead, you're going to have an answer. But what happens by keep asking the question, all of a sudden,
Eventually you're going to get the
answers start coming in. And all of a sudden you find other things to do, and that's,
Yeah. And it's interesting. I found that as I started losing weight, I've actually sensed that people will make comments like, "Oh, you're getting too skinny," or they'll buy me. It was my birthday. People were
yeah.
buying me cakes. People were buying me chocolate. It's almost like they try to sabotage your efforts. But it's true. I really feel
that seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Misery loves company. If somebody
Yeah.
else is overweight, then damn it, you should be too.
No,
Yeah,
I believed that.
But there's a lot,
you
because
know?
I've seen that a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I've had actually people that would come in for training,
Yeah.
and they'll come in for weight loss, and I've had people, tell me that, don't call my house. I don't want, my husband or my wife
Right.
to know. And I said, why? Well, because every time, because I've tried in the past to lose weight, they'll
Yeah.
go out of the way to sabotage.
It's true.
Now, maybe they don't do it consciously,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's almost like they go out of the way
Yeah.
to sabotage my progress.
It's a change that affects them too.
Oh yeah.
And they don't necessarily want to have you change because
Right.
if you change, that implies to them that there's something wrong in your life, which might
Yeah.
include something wrong with them.
Well, yes.
You
Yeah.
mentioned the word mindful. I'm hearing the word mindful sprinkled in through the conversation, and I'm thinking back, to I have a good friend of the show, Dan Lanzalotta. Who I don't know whether he's been on when you've been with me, maybe not. And he goes by the phrase the mindful chef. And I'm beginning to understand by this conversation a little bit better, perhaps, of what he's alluding to by calling himself the mindful chef. And I'll have to get back on Dan Lanzalotta. If you're watching, you need to get in here and tell us what you mean by mindful chef, because I'm hearing it in the conversation here. Continue.
Okay. So, no, sorry. You just
No, I was going to say my experience about the mindful I noticed that as my stomach started shrinking, I would, go to my mom's, and normally we'd go to family dinners, and she'd pile all this food on my plate, and I would just eat so fast, I wouldn't even taste what I was eating.
To pretend like you're not eating it,
Right.
probably.
And then I would eat this whole plate of
Yeah.
food, but then once I started like putting my fork down after each bite and breathing and focusing on what I was eating half. I would get full so much faster. And then another thing I noticed, so I would eat half as much and get full. And then when I'm, by myself and eating, I would wait till the end of the day to eat my one meal, and I would be so hungry. And then I'd serve up myself a big bowl of something, and then I'm eating it, and I would get full so fast. And I thought I was so hungry, and then you get full, and all of a sudden you thought, wow,
Yeah.
I'm full already.
I'll tell you a story about that, similar to what happened to you. A friend of mine,
Yeah.
talk about mindful eating. He used to work at a restaurant. So he goes, every afternoon you make this big bowl of pasta,
Right.
and you eat the whole thing.
Right.
One day he makes this big bowl of pasta. Somebody called the restaurant. They needed information about reservations or something.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he had gotten the chance to eat, I literally ate 6 bites.
Yeah.
So I had to answer the phone. It was a long conversation, and 30 minutes later, I go back, I was full.
Yeah.
I go, normally I would eat the whole thing, and after 6 bites, I was full. And that's what happens to most people. Because you don't feel deprived. I mean, do you feel deprived?
No, you
I mean, that's the thing
don't.
people don't realize, that
Yeah.
once you're slow and mindful, you can eat a lot less food without feeling deprived.
Right.
Because if you feel deprived, you lost the battle.
It's true.
Okay.
Because the idea
Yeah.
is, and a lot of people ask me, I know they're probably asking you too, because Monday to Friday, like during the week, I usually eat only one meal. Okay? And people tell me, oh, what, you go all day starving? Oh, guys, I am not hungry.
Yeah.
And I know you had the same experience.
What is
Right,
this
right.
starving? I mean, what is the starving?
Right.
None of
Yeah,
us
starving,
None of us
yeah.
really know.
Right.
None of us have ever known starvation in our lives. I
Yeah.
would be willing to
Right.
bet.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to bet that nobody in the audience watching
Right.
has ever really experienced starvation.
Or even actually,
Right.
I was reading a study actually on that. Most people haven't even experienced true hunger. Because most people don't even know what the mistaken cravings for
Right.
hunger.
Yeah.
And again, I think the one way you can tell the difference is true hunger, you want to eat anything.
Right.
If you're picky,
Right.
you're not hungry then.
Right. Exactly.
And I remember as a child, my mother, she cooked one meal, and that was it. And the one thing I honestly, as a kid, when I got home, I had my favorite food, don't get me wrong. I didn't care as much though when my mother cooked, because when I got home, I was hungry. And there was one thing that was drilled into our heads: do not ruin your appetite before you come home. And as a kid, I remember that in Greece, the school does not have lunch periods. Well, when I went to school in the 80s, I moved here in 87.
Yep.
So we had a 10-minute break between every class.
Right.
So the school sold snacks, small snacks. So as a kid, my mother used to give us, I think it was like 50 drachmas or something. And if we were hungry, we could buy a snack and eat it. Now, if I hadn't eaten by 12 o'clock noon, I wouldn't dare eat after noon, because I knew at 1:30, 2 o'clock I had to be home to eat, and I didn't want to eat something to ruin my appetite.
Right.
And it was such a drill. Nowadays, who does that?
Right.
And
Yeah, but something's going on. I'm hungry. I'm eat. Yeah,
I gotta eat. I gotta eat.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
There's no real.
As a matter of fact, I think, though, they have actually even scared people into thinking that if you go hungry and you don't eat, it's a terrible thing.
Right.
Like your metabolic rate is going to slow down. Your body's going to go into starvation mode. It's going to eat up all your muscles. Here's a little fact.
Could keel over and die.
Yeah. Here's a little fact that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
That your metabolic rate, and this is actually proven, there was a study done in 2000 actually. I think it was published in Clinical Nutrition, if I'm not mistaken, because I've read so many studies, I can't remember where exactly were published. Anyway, what they found was your metabolic rate, even if you go all day without eating, does not slow down. As a matter of fact, your body becomes more efficient in using fat as a main source of energy and not sugar. As a matter of fact, your metabolic rate goes up 2 to 5% for the first 72 hours without food. Starvation mode kicks in after 72 hours or more. That's when starvation mode goes. That's when everything happens, the bad stuff.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying don't eat for 72 hours, by all
Right.
means. But the point I'm trying to make here is just because you missed a meal, nothing happens to you. But people have been, they've been almost brainwashed in the sense, thinking that something bad happens to you if you don't eat when you're hungry. And
Right.
you see people doing like what I call us prevention eating. Preventive eating. In other words, you eat now because you can't eat later.
Right, yes.
When we come back, we're going to come back and do a second show. But
Yes, sir.
when we come back, remind me, because I'll forget otherwise, remind me to ask you about, just say 20 minutes, and that'll stir my thinking.
20
of the question
minutes,
I want to
okay.
ask. But these folks at the other table, and you know, the owner of the restaurant's trying to kick us out apparently because, well, first of all, we're eating Greek yogurt, and he doesn't sell Greek yogurt, so he must have brought it in.
Probably needs the table
Must have brought it in from the store next door. So he's not happy about that. And everybody else around us is listening to the conversation, and they're not eating. Hey, you know, save that for tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're not hungry,
Save
stop
it for
eating.
tomorrow. Don't. We'll get blamed for it. So save. You guys
Right.
eat. Manja.
Yeah, and then next show I also want to talk about the hormone that kicks in.
Oh yes, that I
leptins.
think is an important point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the hormone,
Right.
we're going to talk about what happens to your body by allowing it to go hungry. To me, I don't think people know. In other words, they've been scared into thinking something bad happens, where in fact, great things happen to your body when you allow it to go hungry. And we'll talk about that in the next show.
Yeah,
Lots to
and
look forward to.
Yeah.
Right.
So don't kick us out, will you? Don't let us. We'll have something to eat afterwards.
Yeah, that's right.
Good night. See you tomorrow
All
at
right.
12:30.
Ready. All right.